doing, everybody, on this great Wednesday in the state of Wisconsin? We thought we were going to get out of the cold. We thought the cold was done. It's not. It's still frigid, stinking cold outside. We're dealing with it. We're dealing with it every single day now. It seems like we're getting close to winter. I am getting more excited, though. I talked about ice fishing. There were some people out there with 3/4 of an inch of ice. Maybe this cold weather couple days here, we could be seeing a little bit more ice there on the lakes around Wisconsin. It's the hope. It's the hope and prayer of every ice fisherman in the state. But with that, this is Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. Today, Austin is with me. Austin, how are we doing on this Wednesday?
Happy hump day, Trage. That's about all I got.
Happy hump day in.
Just happy hump day.
Happy hump day. That's all we got to look forward to today. It is hump day in Wisconsin, everywhere in this great nation, wherever you are listening. It is hump day. And just remember that. And with that, we got a lot to talk about today. I mean, we don't have a lot for Wisconsin sports, I guess you could say, but we're going to be all over the spectrum today. We're going to be talking about Wisconsin volleyball a little bit here to start us off. Then we're going to look at the Bucks game against the Heat last night. Also, we're going to talk about the NBA in-season tournament because, we talked about it once, I do believe. I still don't truthfully understand the entire thing, so we're going to dig into it. We're going to dig into it, talk about it, and see what we think about it. And then we're going to look at the college football playoff rankings. The newest edition has come out, so we're going to look at that a little bit. Also, big news coming from Badger football. Big news, not so good news at the same time, but we're going to get into that. Also, we're going to look at the NFL a little bit as a whole and just see how everyone is sitting right now. So with that, let's jump right away. Wisconsin volleyball earned technically the third best seed in college volleyball for the tournament here. They were behind Nebraska and Stanford in there. They earned the number 3, but they were still a 1 seed in their region. So they will have the 1 seed. They will take on Jackson State, I believe, and they have the winner of UNI and Miami is who they will face in that part of their bracket there. So Badger volleyball definitely earned it there down the stretch, had some big wins, had that sweep win against Nebraska there late in the season. That was impressive. Took care of them at home. Also had wins over Purdue and Penn State later on in the season there. Good to see this Badger team coming into the tournament hot. Hopefully we see good things out of Wisconsin volleyball the rest of the way. But with that, we're going to jump over into the Bucks. Bucks had the Heat last night, took care of business against the Heat, 131-124. This was a game Bucks should have had a little bit more handily, up 9 there in the first, kind of let the Heat take over in that second quarter there. Bucks played a better fourth quarter. That was about it. Other than that, though, no Jimmy Butler for the Heat. The Heat team was still able to put up buckets against this Bucks team, really able to extend them out there. Big games all the way around. But with that, let's jump over to stats here. Austin, you got the stats up for that game last night?
Yeah, we'll start with the Bucks here. Giannis, he got 33 points there, 10 rebounds, nice little double-double for him. Beasley also had a double-double. He had 16 points, 10 rebounds. So that's good to see out of him. And then Damian Lillard putting up 32 points. That's always good to see. I feel like we're starting to see a lot more Giannis and Damian Lillard both getting 30 points together, which is good to see. Earlier in the year, we were seeing a lot more of those two. Like one would get more points, the other one wouldn't, but now we're seeing them collab a little bit more on that. So, and then Middleton, he scored 17. That's good to see there. Only 23 minutes tonight, but still put up 17. So that's good to see by him. And then Brook Lopez has 12. Off the bench, it was Pat Connaughton and Bobby Portis. Connaughton had 7 and Bobby Portis had 6, and then Jackson Jr. also had 6 with that too. So not a whole lot off the bench scoring there, but a little bit of help, just a little bit there from the bench. But it was mainly our starters putting in most of the work there for scoring. And then when you look at Miami here, their main scorer Adebayo, which makes sense considering Jimmy Butler, and Hero were both out of the game, so they kind of had to rely on Adebayo a little bit there. And then Kyle Lowry also had 21, and then Richardson added 20 also. So good job by those guys stepping up, especially with Hero and Jimmy Butler being out. And then off the bench, Caleb Martin and Jaime Jaquez Jr. Put up 14 points. So they had good help off their bench. Only 3 guys came off their bench. Bucks had 6 guys come off their bench. So even though Green only played 2 minutes, that's still a little bit more time for the starters to rest just a little bit there. Whereas the Heat, they only had three guys off the bench. But I mean, those 3 guys off the bench helped out a lot. I mean, they added value to their team. Like you said, looking at the box score, yeah, the Bucks were up by 9 at the end of the first, and then I mean, they kind of crapped the bed there in the second, allowing Miami to score 40 points there alone, and then we only scored 28 there. Third quarter was pretty even, 35 and 34, and then we were able to pull away in the fourth. I saw it was like tied 119 to 119 with 3 minutes left. I'm like, oh, this one might go into overtime possibly, but Bucks were able to pull away there and able to win this in-season tournament game, which helped them clinch. I think they were able to clinch their group, and so they're able to go to Las Vegas now to play for the in-season championship. Trade your mic.
What worries me with the Bucks here, looking at the box, you look at the guards for the Heat. Robinson, Lowry, Richardson, like you said, Jaquez and Caleb Martin, all in double figures in this ball game. Richardson and Lowry both go for 20 pieces. Robinson had 13 to add on himself, and then Martin and Yame had 14 apiece there off the bench. So the guards, the problem we talked about just recently with the Bucks, the inability to guard the perimeter, proved in this ball game once again. They cannot guard the perimeter. Bam Adebayo, he gets his. It doesn't matter who you got. Bam Adebayo is going to get his points. But Caleb Martin and Kyle Lowry getting up there in age, not really that great. I mean, he's still a good point guard, but he's not fantastic. And Richardson, he's okay, but these are all guys that the Bucks, I mean, I'm just not a fan of the defense right now for this Bucks team is basically what I'm trying to get at here is that, again, we see the Bucks defense struggle in this ball game, looking especially in that second quarter. I mean, giving up 40 points there in the second quarter. That was a rough quarter for the Bucks. They kind of struggled second and third quarter there, 40 points and 35 points there, respectively, for the Heat. The Heat shot pretty well. I mean, 51% from the floor, 46% from downtown there. But, I mean, 46% from downtown. You got to be able to run guys off the three-point line. I think the Bucks need to do a better job of that moving forward here if they're going to have some success, especially when they start facing some of these better teams in the East. I don't think, Jimmy Butler plays in this game. I think it's a completely different ball game. I think we're looking at a completely different score here because 131-124, no Jimmy Buckets in there. That's the Jimmy Butler's your difference maker, or can be your difference maker. Tyler Hero could be a difference maker for this team, the Heat team that can go deeper than on that bench. So that's my worry right now with the Bucks is on that defensive end. But we'll take wins how we can get them. 131-124 was the finish there for the Bucks. I got to check here. I don't know when the Bucks will play next.
Friday.
Looks like they're going to have the Bulls on Friday. The Bulls coming up on Friday. They're in Chicago. 7 o'clock start for that one. We'll get into that one a little bit later this week. But Bucks get the win over the Heat, 131-124. So good to see the Bucks go keep on their winning ways and pick up a win there. With that, though, I want to jump over and talk about this NBA in-season tournament. So, Austin, do you got it up over there? The kind of the explanation of what the NBA in-season tournament is?
Yeah, I got an explanation of it. I feel like it gets a little confusing, just reading over it a little bit. But basically,
give me the
it's kind of like your round robin
summary of what the tournament is.
Yeah. So basically, it's like a round robin tournament. You play. There's these random teams, randomly drawn into 5 groups, and within their conference. and you play everyone once, and then based off your win loss record, um, those the best teams get picked to go to Las Vegas to play in this tournament, like another separate tournament to win the championship. So, it's kind of weird. It's kind of like I can see why they did it, but it's just weird that this is just something new that has came up to it or that has come into the NBA. But like, yeah, it is a little weird. I don't really know. I don't really know what to talk about it. Some things do get a little confusing when you look at it. It's hard to explain a little bit.
So,
and
what I am seeing
I don't know if
right
you can
now,
add anything else that you're reading.
what I'm seeing right now is, okay, so we're advancing out of group play right now. We were just in group play.
Yeah.
We're advancing out of group play. We're now into the knockout rounds. So the knockout rounds will consist of single elimination games for the 8 teams that advance from the group play, beginning with the quarterfinals December 4th through the 5th. Teams that win will progress to neutral site semifinals on December 7th, and then the championships on December 9th. Looks like the first and second round of the knockout rounds will count as regular season games for all purposes. The championship will not be counted as a regular season game. Such game will not be counted towards the team's regular season record, and a player or team's performance in such game will not count towards regular season statistics. In each conference, quarterfinal games will be hosted by the 2 teams with the best record in group play. That's why I guess you want to get the better record I'm seeing out of this. But, I mean, it's like, okay, you build this in-season tournament to try and engage fans back into the game. Try and make it exciting for fans, right? If you're an average fan of the NBA, I will be the first to admit, I don't just sit at home and say, I can't wait to watch an NBA basketball game. I'll say that about college football. I'll say that about some NFL games, college basketball. I don't say it about the NBA. So now you add something like this. We're reading through the rules right now, and it's still confusing. Why? So in the middle of the season here, we're going to have a championship game. Not counted towards anything. This team just has to play one more game that doesn't mean anything other than a simple mid-season, you're a champion, you get some incentives game. That's about it. That's all I'm getting out of this. That's basically what it is. I mean, it looks like for the 2020, the in-season tournament prize pool will be allocated to the players of the teams that participate in the knockout rounds, increasing as far as the team progresses. So Bucks players already qualify for incentives now making the knockout rounds. They just get more as the tournament moves on, as they move on throughout it. So that's weird. I still find it weird. I still find this entire thing weird. So you're going to have 8 teams coming out, 2 best record teams. They're going to host games here. And the knockout rounds will be 4th and the 5th will be the start of it. 7th will be the semifinals, and the championship will be on the 9th. I don't like it. I honestly don't like this. I think this is stupid. I honestly think this entire thing is one big old game by the NBA to try to engage fans, and I think they failed. I really do think they failed with this one. It's too complicated. It really is. If nobody understands it, unless if you're a diehard fan, if you're sitting there night in and night out, you're NBA all the time, then you understand this. If you are just an avid fan, you understand the NBA playoffs. You understand when playoffs roll around, the implications and everything like that. But this, how many times this season where it's like we're watching games and it's like, oh, that's an in-season tournament game. And then all of a sudden they'll play 5 more games. And then the next game, it's like, oh, this is another in-season tournament game. It's too cluttered. It doesn't make sense. There's no sense that I'm getting out of it. To you, what are you thinking about this in-season tournament so far? Like, do you like it? Do you think it's a waste of time? I honestly think it's a waste of time. I think it's stupid. I don't see the point. I see the point that they're trying to do, but the point is not working. I just don't think I don't think it's successful right now. I don't think fans are drawn in by it. I don't see a big hoopla about it. Maybe I'm wrong, but from what I've seen around social media, more people are confused than they are intrigued by this tournament.
Yeah, first off, I don't really watch a whole lot of NBA to begin with, because I just prefer college basketball over NBA basketball. There just seems like a little bit more competition there. But what I've heard from some of my buddies that watch a little bit more of NBA, they say this is basically to get the players to try a little bit harder. That's basically all I'm getting out of it, because players don't be trying hard. Some games they be a lot. Well, now what you see is a lot of players are sitting out some games, especially like those the All Stars. I mean, LeBron James obviously getting older, but like a lot of players are sitting out games and supposedly not trying hard. So what these games are designed to do is to get the players to try harder, which is why there's an incentive at the end of it and all that. But also, like you said, it gets confusing in there when you randomly add an in-season tournament game here. You play 4 games. Oh, here's another one. And what you do, you change the court so people know that it's an in-season game. And some of these courts are god-awful, let me tell you that. Like, what are you even trying to do? It's even hard to watch the game sometimes. Some of them are cool, I'll admit, but some of them are bad.
Chicago Bulls with a complete red court.
Yeah. And it's like, all right.
An eyesore for sure. And so I get what they're trying to do, which is get the players to try harder and try and involve a little bit of fan engagement there with a tournament style type thing besides the playoffs. But in all reality, I think it gets confusing for fans, especially if you don't, like you said, especially if you don't keep up with the NBA regularly on a basis. And I don't know, it is a little weird. Maybe more fans will start watching once like it actually gets to like the knockout rounds and a championship. But at this point, it just seems like a participation trophy. Like, oh, you got the in-season tournament. You got the in-season tournament trophy, but what you still have to play for the NBA championship. Like, if you don't win that, then this in-season tournament doesn't mean jack squat. And I feel like some players might realize that and still don't care about the in-season tournament. I mean, their eyes are still going to be focused on the championship, which is good that they made these in-season tournaments still count towards their regular season record. I will give them that. I mean, they still count towards something at the end of the day. But in all this just seems like another way to make money and confuse fans, and I don't know. It's just odd. It is just odd. I mean, obviously it's new. We've never seen something like it, and they're just, I don't know. It could be just 1 year thing that they're trying out, or this could be the new thing that sticks around for forever. Who knows? But yeah, like you said, it is different. It's weird. Tell me something. What happened to wanting to win because that's just what it was? Tell me what happened to playing for the love of the game and not for, I just want the dollars. Because if you look at the payouts for this game, or for this in-season tournament, if you win the championship, $500,000 per player. If you reach the championship game, $200,000 per player. Reach the semifinals, $100,000 per player. Reach the quarterfinal game, $50,000 per player. So now you know all the money. Look at what some of the players said. Spencer Dinwiddie. Who don't like money? Hey, listen, $500,000, that could pay for my Rolls Royce. That's Spencer Dinwiddie for you. I tried to speak in like he would there, but wasn't working. LeBron James, $500,000 on the line, so we're going for that. Anthony Davis, $500K, sound real good. It's going to bring that juice. You know what I mean? You just look through these, And you're just like, okay, but so is it just about winning? Like, when I used to watch NBA basketball, when I used to watch Michael Jordan, it wasn't about, I didn't watch him personally because I wasn't born yet when Mike was still, balling up with the Bulls there. But I do have a lot of video and a lot of VHS tapes of Michael Jordan's games, everything like that from my uncle there. And, it just seemed like when those guys played, it was because the Chicago Bulls wanted to beat whoever it was. They wanted to beat the Bad Boy Pistons. And the Magic Johnson, he wanted to beat Larry Bird. Larry Bird wanted to beat Magic Johnson. It wasn't at the end of all of it, they got $500,000. I mean, that probably would have been cool back in that day because that wasn't, that's big X amount of dollars back in that day. But just to me, it just seems like when I hear this NBA talk and I listen to these NBA players, it's just money. It's not just NBA. It's all around. It's all sports. And that's my biggest problem with professional sports is the money. It's even moving into college sports now with, college players being paid now too. It's becoming a problem all the way around. Why do you need $500,000 to be on the line for you to go out on the basketball court every single night and play? That's what I want to know. Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, those guys, they didn't have that money on the line. They had championships on the line. They wanted to get the best seed they could in the playoffs, make the championship, but they played night in and night out. Hell, Michael Jordan played with the flu. I mean, one of the greatest games of all time is the flu game by Michael Jordan. And yet, these guys, it's like to get you out there, to get you to play, to get you to want to play, we have to physically pay you $500,000 just to get you out on the court for it to want to win that championship. It just baffles me. Why do you have to, I don't know if it's just me. But when I watch these guys, these guys should want to be out on the court because they're a generational player who's, trying to create the path for the next generational player, after that. They're the role models of how many kids out there. And you're teaching kids who are watching you, who are reading this. I mean, kids can read. They're not, completely illiterate. They can read. So LeBron James, $500,000 on the line. Oh, that's cool. LeBron James, all about the money. Anthony Davis, all about the money. I can go and win me some money. So that's why I want to play the game of basketball, is because I want to win that money. The biggest thing, it's like in my job as an electrician, right? It's not the same. It's not even close to the same. Do I think sometimes I should make as much as these guys do for playing a game? Sometimes I do, because I play with high voltages. I don't even make close to what they do, and I risk my life doing the job I do. But I say to new guys will start, and I'll say to them, if this is something you want to do for just the money, you're crazy. You don't want to do this for the money. You want to enjoy it, right? You want to enjoy doing it, and that's my thing with NBA players now. It's like, do they really enjoy it, or are they just doing it for the money? Because right now, with what I'm seeing here, these are some of the bigger stars in the NBA, and they're playing night in and night out right now in these in-season tournament games because they want the money. That's it. They just want to win the money. It's not, none of these said, I want to beat that team. None of these said to me, I want to win that cup. Actually, Quentin Grimes did. Everybody talks about the cup and everything, but I feel like everybody's really going out there. No, Quentin Grimes said exactly what I'm saying here. Quentin Grimes came out and said, everybody talks about the cup and everything, but I feel like everybody's really going out there to play for that money. Quentin Grimes said that via Fred Katz. So Quentin Grimes is telling us right there that exactly what I'm saying is that this tournament is basically just a money scheme for the NBA. That's all that it is. They want the players, all they're playing for is money, and I just find that to be a load of crap. And I think it's making a generation of basketball turn into a load of garbage. That's my opinion on it. You want to know why the NBA is failing? Because we have a bunch of guys like this who are only out there to play for money. They don't care what fan supports them. They don't care if some fan shows up to the stadium and they're sitting out for load management reasons. They don't care. They really don't. They're in there to get a paycheck, and that is a crock of crap on every single NBA player who does that. I'm talking about LeBron James. I'm talking about Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. We can name them all day long, guys who have sat out the past couple of years for load management reasons. I think it's a load of bull crap, and to get them out there to play for money, that's even bigger bull crap to me.
Yeah, and I like the point what you said about it trickling down to college games now, especially with. I mean, let me tell you, NIL great. It's great for players to make money off their name, image, and likeness. When it comes to now, let's get a little bit off topic about the in-season tournament, but when it comes to college players, what I don't like about that is when they start asking for money to get them recruited there. That's not what the NIL was intended to do. NIL was intended so people can't use you, um, aka the NCAA, can't make millions of dollars off of you, and then you get absolutely nothing. You get a little stipend checks, you can get a couple meals, or you can pay for. Now, granted, even kids on scholarship, I mean, they get everything paid. Or like if you're on full scholarship, everything gets paid for you. So it is what it is. But there's a lot of players that aren't on full scholarship, uh, whether it's D1, D2, and then obviously D3. You have no scholarship. So I mean, NIL that creates a good advantage for those kids to profit off themselves. What I don't like is when people are especially well, I mean, Caleb Williams. You even see him saying, and this doesn't really deal with NIL, but him saying, if this team doesn't take me, I'm going back to college for another year. All right. Why? Because you don't think you're at that point you're not even betting on yourself to lead a team to win because they're not good. Um, okay, I'm pretty sure like how many I can't remember how many people would want to be in that situation and want to go play in NFL. And now you're saying you're going to go back to another year of college just because you can, because you have all this NIL money. It's weird now these days um, that everyone's just being greedy. It all comes down to greed. That's all. I mean, everything's
It
now about money. Nothing's about ethics. Nothing's about wanting to play the game. It's all about how can I make the most amount of money without doing the least amount of work. Honestly,
It's the
um,
biggest it's the biggest issue facing our game today. I mean, I'm okay with flipping the script on NIL because like you're saying, they started that for name, image, and likeness. They did, but we knew what was coming. They opened up an avenue that they couldn't close. They opened up that door, that submarine door, the one that says do not open, water will come in. They opened that baby and said, son of a gun, we can't get it closed now. The NCAA screwed up. They really did. I mean, look at the WNBA. The WNBA is impacted right now because players like Angel Reese and other players like that, she simply said coming out of last season, she's like, why would I go to the WNBA and make less money than I'm making now in college? Why would you? Why would you, if you're Caleb Williams, why would you go to the NFL and play for the Chicago Bears with a terrible offensive line when you could come back to USC, make bank, not have to do anything? I mean, we all know Caleb. I mean, I can speculate Caleb Williams doesn't really go to class or anything like that. I can speculate that and probably be spot on telling you Caleb Williams, if he goes to class, he's not studying anything major in college. So he's got a pretty easy life right now. And that's just the plain reality of it. And it started at the top. It started somewhere and it trickled its way down. Players, one and done players, we might not see as many one and done players anymore because why would players want to be one and done when they can just come back to college and make X amount of dollars, party around all day long, not have to live that adult life yet? We're still college students, but we're making bank. It's just, I mean, they opened up avenues, they opened up doors that, guess what? They can't close anymore. They're open and they're screwed. And the NCAA screwed up. The NBA screwed up long ago. And in my opinion, players' unions have screwed up over the years because the MLB's got problems with the players' union. Having a players' union screwed up the MLB. A lot of these major organizations are slowly screwing it up. And like you said, it comes down to no longer having ethics. It's all about greed. And that's where we're at right now. It's across the board, all major sports. It's across the board, all major sports right now. Doesn't matter the university you're at. It's a problem. And university, organization, whatever it is, it's a problem.
yeah, and we also see this. I don't know if you want to jump into it, but we also see this with players now sitting out for bowl games, um, which I mean I can't remember. I mean I've probably seen something where like back in the day, like no matter what bowl game it was, if you were a senior and you declared for the draft or whatever, you were still going to play the bowl game for your team. Like that was just why would you sit out for it? And now we see a lot more players in college football sitting out for bowl games, and that leads. I don't know if you want to move on, but that leads into discussion about Braylon Allen, as he declared for the draft today, and is he going to suit up for the Badgers one last time in the bowl game? And I'm going to say I highly doubt it because first off,
I don't
he
think
was
so.
injured. First off, he
Yeah,
was
I don't
injured,
think so. I don't think he is.
and so why would he suit up for in a bowl game where what we're gonna be in some let's just say Music City Music Bowl or whatever it is. Like there's no value in that for him. His stats are he's gonna gain like what 100 more yards. Like that doesn't really carry anything for him. So basically, he's just gonna start training right away for the NFL, and then. But you see this. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, he sat out for when Stafford went to the bowl game, and I mean, there's just a numerous amount of players that also do it too. I mean, you went to that school to play football. I mean, and yes, obviously, college. If you're really good, these colleges try to set you up to get you to the NFL. But I mean, like the least you can do is play in the one last game in a bowl game. I mean, plus the amount of gifts you get too playing those games is stupid. But especially the smallest ones.
Yeah.
But I think that it hurts the fan too. It hurts the fans. I mean, imagine you're a little kid, you're going to this game expecting your favorite player to play, and this leads back to also NBA players sitting out. You go to these games, you expecting your favorite player to play, and now they're not playing. I mean, that can be sad as a fan also, but yeah, Braylon Allen, pretty much his career's over as a Badger. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets picked in like the fifth. It's probably gonna be like a fourth to sixth round pick for whoever picks him up because this year was just obviously he was battling injuries, but this year was not a good year overall for him. I mean, what was it? Probably when he was a freshman was his best year. I'd say maybe last year, but yeah,
Freshman, sophomore year, yeah, 2021.
The crazy thing is he's only 19 too. He's not even 20 years old. I mean, he's going to turn 20 when the draft happens, but he's technically only 19 years old, which I mean could rise his stock a little bit just because of how young he is. I mean,
I just don't like the injuries.
But the injuries, yeah, that could also, and he's also not very fast. I mean, he might run like a 4.6. I mean, he definitely doesn't have that breakaway speed. We've seen that.
He's more like a big Derrick Henry, but a little bit slower even.
Yeah. I mean, he'll probably run you over, but that's about all. He's definitely just a power back, for sure. But I'm thinking, if anything, he's probably going to go between the 4th and 6th round, probably. I don't got nothing.
I'd have to agree with you there. It's kind of like we were talking about. It's the ethics. It's the passion. It's rivalries aren't really there. It's the tradition isn't really there anymore. I mean, you see guys sitting out of, if the Rose Bowl wasn't a part of the college football playoff, you see guys sitting out of that now. I mean, the Rose Bowl used to be it was the granddaddy of them all, the biggest college. It was the biggest college bowl game you could be a part of. Nowadays, it's whatever. Braylon Allen's going to see it as whatever. I get it. I do get it. You don't want to injure yourself. You don't want to injure yourself for your own self reasons. And I could see that reasoning behind it. But in the grand scheme of things, you play a season with your team. Whatever the outcome of that season, you are a bowl eligible now. You helped your team become bowl eligible. And now you just basically say, well, we made it. We became bowl eligible. It wasn't a great season. It wasn't like it was over the top, but we made a bowl. And now, guys, I'm going to tell you this now. I'm going to the draft, so I'm not going to be on the sideline with you. And then, basically just walk away. That's just what That's what guys do nowadays. I mean, like you said, back in the day, everybody played. Didn't matter what bowl game you were in. You were out there with your teammates because that's how college football worked. That's how the college world worked. You wanted to play in that one last game as a college athlete. And Braylon Allen's last game against Minnesota, it was one of his better games of the season, but still, you helped the Badgers win the X. You helped them win the Heartland Trophy. You could have helped them win one more. It just baffles me that guys, I mean, just walk away. They just walk away. They don't finish what they started. That just seems like that's one of those things that if I was an NFL executive, that would lower the stock for me, to be honest. You can't go out there and finish a year. You're kind of leaning towards this is more about you and it's not about your team. If I'm trying to build a team in the sport, I'm leaning towards guys who are out there day in and day out, the guys who put their body on the line for this team. You know, if Hunter Wohler all of a sudden, if he plays in this, whatever it is, probably the Music City Bowl, if he plays in it and then all of a sudden says, hey, I'm gonna declare for the NFL draft. Hunter Wohler has put his body on the line for the Badgers all season long and also probably had this in the back of his mind going into that bowl game, still played, and then helped the Badgers say win it. I think his draft stock rises because of something like that, to me. So that's just kind of where I'm at with it. I agree. It's kind of a lost art. It's a lost passion for the sport.
Yeah. And, I mean, as we were saying, it does suck. But also, I'm pretty sure it was either last year or 2 years ago, Matt Corral, a quarterback for Ole Miss, he was very highly he was also like very highly ranked in getting picked as a quarterback, and then he ended up getting injured in a bowl game. And so some players might see that and be like, I don't want that to be me, and then declare for the draft. But as you said, yeah, it hurts to see that as a fan, as someone who watches these guys play, and you know how big they are. Like even Jonathan Taylor even played when they were in like the Pinstripe Bowl or something. He still even played for the Badgers, and now look at him. I mean, he's flourishing as an NFL back. And I mean, he got picked in the second round or third round, can't remember. But and it's not only players that be doing this. I mean, even coaches in college football will be. I mean, look at the Oregon State coach. I mean, they're ranked. I can't remember what they're ranked. We'll probably get into that later. But they were ranked high, and for Oregon State, I mean, they haven't been overly great, but this coach who used to play there, I'm pretty sure, took them up the ranks, and they've been playing pretty good football. And they lost a couple of games, so now they're not in the Pac-12 championship, but they're still going to make a pretty decent bowl game. But now their head coach left them, and now is going to be the coach at Michigan State, even though the year isn't technically over yet. And it's like, I don't get why you're just leaving your team out to dry like that. They still have to play this game without their head coach now. Now they're going to have an interim head coach. That's what I also don't get. It's kind of like coaches chasing money also there. The least you can do is at least finish out the season with your team that you started with, that you've been around, that you recruited all those guys. I mean, those guys have been your day one, and now you're kind of just leaving them for a different team. And I don't know. All I'm saying is if I was a player for that team, I'd be like, unless if he talked with them, I'm guessing a lot of them might have gotten blindsided by it. I don't know. But as a player, you'd have a little like quench in your stomach there about that. Like, dang. I mean, I guess that's how business is in the NCAA, but especially Division I, because a lot of coaches are getting paid really big money now. So you're not just seeing this in players; you're also seeing this coaches.
It'll definitely be interesting too come next season with that 12-team football, with that 12-team playoff. You're not guaranteed the national championship. You're not. So I wonder to see how many guys play that card where they're going to declare you don't want to risk it. You don't want to risk playing that many games in a row to get to a national championship. I wonder how many guys sit out then. I really do. Moving that up to 12 teams now you're going to get, I mean, looking at this year, you're going to have teams all the way down to Oklahoma getting in there along with like Ole Miss, Penn State, all teams like that. Well, how many of those guys? I mean, number 12 Oklahoma taking on number 1 Georgia. How many of those guys from Oklahoma sit out? That's my wonder, is that what that does to affect the landscape. But with that, speaking of the college football playoff rankings, the new one has dropped. Georgia comes in at number 1. Michigan is in the 2 spot now, followed by Washington in the 3, Florida State in the 4, Oregon at the 5 spot, Ohio State at the 6. I don't like that they're above Texas. Texas in the 7, Alabama in the 8, and then from so on, those teams basically eliminated for the college football playoff right now, with 2 losses. So I like Georgia at 1. I like Michigan at 2. Georgia and Michigan have proven it to me. Washington hasn't. Washington escaped a game there against Washington State. Washington State played well. Washington, iffy, won it on a last-second field goal. Florida State without Jordan Travis barely escaped Florida. We knew that was going to be a good game, but Florida without Graham Mertz, and yet Florida hangs around in that one. I really do think Oregon gets in yet, and I really do think Texas gets in. I'm going to be honest with you. If I had to predict the rest of this college football playoff field, Ohio State can't get back in. I don't think they get back in. That game against Michigan, they lost it. They don't have a chance for a conference championship. I think they get ounced. I do think Oregon beats Washington in that Pac-12 championship, and they jump Washington. And then Texas, even if Alabama beats Georgia, that's where it gets weird. Because if you take a 1-loss Alabama team in there over Texas beat Alabama early in the season, but how do you keep out Alabama if you put Georgia into that game? So it's going to get really dicey. That SEC championship game is going to decide a lot for the college football playoff. I really do think. Between the Pac-12 championship and the SEC championship, that's where the dominoes will fall for this one.
Yeah, and I also look at the ACC championship now with Florida State without Jordan Travis. I mean, Louisville, they did lose against Kentucky there, but they're still in there for the ACC championship game. And, I mean, Louisville's not a bad team, obviously. So if Florida State there loses, they're 12-1. So I'm guessing they're probably going to get bumped out because they're going to take a champion over someone who just lost in there. So, I mean, and also Georgia, they barely beat Georgia Tech also. I mean, they only beat Georgia Tech by 8 points. And that's what I think about these rivalry games. It's hard to judge some of these teams based off of a rivalry game because, I mean, anything can keep this close, especially if you look at the Alabama-Auburn game there. I mean, Auburn got blown out by, Jacksonville State or something. They got blown out – or no, New Mexico State. They got blown out by New Mexico, paid them millions of dollars to come play them in Auburn, and then they lose. So that's kind of funny. But then Auburn turned around and almost beat Alabama. Should have beat Alabama there. But we all know how that story went there. So Alabama versus Georgia, it's going to be a good game. I think Georgia's going to pull that one out. Michigan's obviously going to knock the socks off of Iowa because Iowa probably won't score over 10 points. And Washington versus Oregon, that's going to be a big question. And then Florida State versus Louisville, that's going to be a big question. And then Texas versus Oklahoma, I mean, or is Texas playing Oklahoma State? Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not a gimme either for Texas, but I think Texas will be able to win that game based off of them they just beat I can't remember who they just played. But Texas Tech. They just killed Texas Tech there, so they're on high hopes there. I mean, if Texas wins the Big 12, Washington beats Oregon, so that eliminates Oregon. Ohio State, I don't think they have a chance because they're not playing for a championship. Florida State loses, Georgia wins, Michigan wins, Washington wins, Florida State loses. I think you put Texas in there. But that might be the only way Texas gets in there. Once Alabama beats
Texas
Georgia,
needs
Georgia to win.
Sorry. Yep. Texas needs Georgia to win. They need Washington to beat Oregon, and they need Florida State to lose. And then Texas can get it. they can get in the back door then. But other than that, I mean, Alabama, that's tough. I mean, even if they beat Georgia, how do you take a one-loss Alabama team over a one-loss Texas team? Alabama's one loss coming to Texas. How do you, I mean, it was early on in the season, but you take, I mean, if head-to-head doesn't matter anymore, then what does? I mean, what really does? So that's just, I don't know. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision because if that scenario plays out, it's going to be rough. If Georgia loses, if Washington loses, if Georgia loses, if Florida State loses, if everybody's got a loss besides Michigan, I don't know. I really don't know how. I mean, you take head-to-heads into comparison there. You take Pac-12 champ, you take Big 12 champ. I mean, it's a mess. It would be a mess.
Here's what I think. I'm gonna look up Georgia's schedule here, and they got some pretty good wins. I mean, you look at it; they beat what's going on here? So they're one of their really good wins. I mean, against Mississippi that they killed 52-17. Missouri was close. Auburn, that was close. South Carolina, that was close. So, I mean, a lot of these teams that they played that were like high caliber were close games, and then obviously they were going to kick the crap out of some of the really bad teams. I think if Georgia loses to Alabama, I don't know if Georgia's making the college football playoffs. I think Alabama might get in there. Georgia falls, Texas wins. Texas would get in there, depending on if Florida State wins or loses. I mean, that would suck. That would suck if Alabama beats Georgia, Texas doesn't get in, and then we have another Alabama versus Georgia college football playoffs. And I mean, it would especially. I mean, no matter what happens, 1, 2, 3, 4, if they all win their respective conferences, that's going to be the 4 teams. Now, if Alabama beats Georgia, does that bump everyone down? How does that work exactly? Then Michigan would probably be 2. Let me tell you, this is one of the most interesting years that we've had because we actually have scenarios that are fun. You know what I'm saying? Past years, it's been like, oh, okay, well, Georgia's kicking the crap out of everyone. They're going to be in there. Oh, this year it's going to be Alabama and Clemson for the national championship probably. I mean, not really anything happening. I feel like this is finally a year where we have some – this is finally a year we have some interesting things that that the conference championships actually matter a little bit now. I mean, not that they haven't mattered, but, I mean, it had some playoff implications. So, I mean, the top 4 teams, they went out. They're the only undefeated teams left in the nation there besides Liberty, obviously. But Liberty, I mean, they're ranked, 24th there? Don't think they're making the college football playoffs. So, but, I mean, if these teams want to make things simple, they would just win out, or they would just win all their respective conferences, and then the committee will be happy. But, I mean, if one team loses, then we might get might be a little exciting there then to watch.
It definitely will be. And we ran a little bit long. We got all over the place today. We're going to get into the Badgers season. You know, was it a success or anything like that? We're going to get into it tomorrow. Also, we're going to look at the NFL a little bit tomorrow there, get into our contenders, pretenders, and just look around the NFL and see what we're thinking right now. Also, touch into a lot more Wisconsin sports because there's always stuff happening. But with that, it has been awesome talking with you guys today. This has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trades. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow. But until then, deuces.